So, but let's look at the implication from a financial viewpoint. The implications are very serious, ladies and gentlemen, because besides theoretical research, we invest now a very large sums of money in experiments in particle physics. Think about the hundreds of millions of dollars that we Americans pass every year to the laboratory at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland, where they use billions of dollars per year. We participate in a certain amount. The money that we spend at Fermilab and SLAC, etc. Beginning from when I was at Harvard University, then continued for years, then I stopped because it was laughable. Even the continuation of such an action became laughable. Every year I used to write a letter, very respectful letter, to the director of particle physics laboratories to consider, at least consider, experiments that confirms or deny all predictions according to which special relativity it cannot be exactly valid in the interior of hadrons. For countless reasons, the proposal was very technical, very respectful, and very technical. Was done by the recommendation of measuring the behavior of the mean life of unstable hadrons such as kaon, meson, pi meson, etc. with speed. This behavior had already, so was very, very specific and concrete, and was very feasible at their laboratory. And was fundamental. Any other experiment they were doing will dwarf by comparison with respect to the importance of this experiment. In addition, to understand the gravity of the decay, there were experiments already indicating deviation. So I was asking for a final resolution of this issue. The deviations have been studied, reviewed in detail in lecture 3A when dealing with symmetries. All my letters remain totally ignored. Not only so, but when I addressed, one of the letters was addressed to Leon Lederman, at that time director of Fermilab, I believe. I spare you the way the gentleman disqualified me. The documentation now is in the hands of unfriendly people in Europe. I have no documentation whatsoever in my house or in my office, of course, for my own safety. As soon as there is new evidence of misconduct, it is sent to appropriate people in Europe for due condemnation by contemporary society as well as by posterity. But let's go now to look at the investment. Look, what are the implications, ladies and gentlemen? The implications that hundreds of millions of taxpayer money invested in laboratory are in doubt. Why? Because in all those scattering experiments, we have a very irreversible process. We have one proton hitting a nucleus, and out of this event you have a jillion of particles that are created. A large number of particles are being created. This process is structurally irreversible. But the theory that they use in the data elaboration is reversible. It's Einstein's special relativity and relativistic quantum mechanics. So all indications show that not only this is conceptual, then you look at the mathematics and the physics and the number, everything indicates that the numerical results proffered by in those laboratories following the investment of hundreds of millions of dollars, the numerical results are experimental beliefs by the experimentalists, because they have refused to verify the validity or invalidity of the basic knowledge, not even to consider the validity or invalidity. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest if we care about America and mankind. We are talking about the abuse of very large public sum in the range of hundreds of millions of dollars in laboratory alone, let alone billions of dollars that are abused in academia by the use of Einstein theory under conditions that are inapplicable because of the advancement of human knowledge. Another episode that I have to denounce is that at CERN, The condition at CERN is simply unbelievable, because any is so bad that to be beyond any level of credibility. I am referring to total collapse of ethics at CERN, in which any idea of presenting criticism of relativistic quantum mechanics or of the scattering theory, any person who has such an idea, ladies and gentlemen, that person needs medical attention, or is an accomplice, or needs medical attention. Not only this type of scientific debate is denied at CERN, but the person who tries to make a scientific dialogue is instantly disqualified. Let me give you one concrete example. I remember an episode of 1992. I was invited by John Ellis, a former director of the theoretical division at CERN, to discuss hadronic mechanics. And I was invited to deliver similar lectures to a number of physics departments in Europe, in Italy, and in Europe. Well, it has been documented in that the Jewish physicist Gabriele Veneziano, that then was the director of the theoretical division at CERN, contacted each and every one of those departments, and thanks to the help of his friends, therefore the organized character of this conspiracy, he managed to suppress my seminar. I remember I was traveling from town to town to arrive and see that my seminar had been terminated. There was only one department that denied rejected this act of scientific crime by Mr. Veneziano, and it was the Democritus Institute in Athens. I still remember they called him back in my presence and in the presence before my speech, and they remember the words, Mr. Veneziano, Greece is the land of democracy. They call him Mr., and they call me Professor Santilli, is a former member of the Department of Mathematics of Harvard University, with support of the Department of Energy, as well as a very distinguished scientist. We will not deny, under no condition, his right to speak, and and indeed I deliver. Why this director of the theoretical division at CERN went into such extreme of compromising himself, selling his soul, to prevent me from speaking? Well, because the title of the talk was, I don't remember exactly, but it was preliminary experimental evidence on the approximate character of relativistic quantum mechanics in particle physics. And I was presenting a long list of preliminary experimental evidence that are now fully established. Finally, I have one final comment. Following this very large financial implications of misuse of very large public funds, I have another aspect to bring to the attention of fellow America, to indicate the gravity of the decay and the dimension of the damage that is being inflicted every day by this organized cartel on Einstein doctrine. And this is now the clear, ongoing transfer of leadership to China. Let me make a couple of examples. I proposed for years to measure the gravity of positron, the antiparticle, in flight in a horizontal tube, in a horizontal vacuum tube on Earth. All prediction is that the positron will go up rather than go down. Namely, all predictions are that we will measure very likely, for the first time in history, anti-gravity. Of course, this is the expectation. The proposal is very scientific. Measure the gravity, which means we don't know. After the measure, we will see. Now, this experiment has been systematically rejected even by the consideration of all departments of physics in the United States as well as in Western Europe. Why? Because if successful, will imply the removal of the dominance of Einstein's interest of virtually half of the universe. That's what it boils down. while they intend to maintain the dominance of the totality of the scientific worldwide and throughout all the universe by Einstein theory. But here is the point. Now the experiment is under serious consideration by China. If China will indeed conduct the experiments, it will be too late for America. We will lose the leadership. I have a long list of similar, because the most important experiments are beyond Einstein. The most important new technology are necessarily beyond Einstein. And there is no other way around. So what is perhaps the biggest, not only is one of the side products of this down spiral, is the transfer of leadership to a foreign country just because of our passive acceptance of what has been officially, repeatedly dubbed as an organized scientific crime. So let's see what the foundation are, the real scientific foundation. This organized cartel essentially claims has maintained the application of Einstein theory throughout all conditions existing in the universe. Let's see what is the real substance of this. We're talking about trillions of dollars based on what? Let's see the substance, the meat, the scientific meat in this use of trillions of dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, the meat is very meager, because special relativity can be claimed to be exact only on the condition stated by Einstein for point particle moving in vacuum and examined by inertial reference frame. Everything else, all other conditions, special relativity is the theology, the validity of special relativity is the theology. This includes accelerated frame, rotating frames. We know it can be proved that it can be proved that the speed of the light is no longer necessarily constant. And of course, antimatter, there is no distinction, neutral particle in special relativity. Neutral particle, antiparticle. And then, of course, interior problem, irreversible process, etc. And besides, Einstein gravitation, as we have hopefully indicated in this lecture, is catastrophically inconsistent. So, ladies and gentlemen, those trillions of dollars are abused on very, very meager and fundamentally insufficient scientific grounds. Let's go to now what is the structure of this cartel. It is a true international organization, and this structure is very well known. It's written also, you can sometimes find it even in the web. First of all, the structure rests in academia. So think about Princeton University, Harvard University, MIT, Berkeley, University of Austin, Cornell, the leading, not the little one. You have to look at the leading university, leading in this cartel, unfortunately. Now, and where is the gangrene? The gangrene is that the review process are fundamentally flawed. America will decay up to upheaval in civil, military, and political disruption unless we resolve this. Remember what I said. Remember the hundreds of papers on a fundamentally new discipline now established at the industrial level all over the world, rejected systematically by American Physical Society because of the financial and other reason implicated in this cartel. And then we correct that, ladies and gentlemen. We have no hope. America is doomed, period. And who is doing the review? Them. It's the same structure, the same members of the cartel. Think about Weinberg, Coleman, think about Glashow, Lederman, Panofsky, Feshbach, although some of those are deceased now, but those were the reviewer. So the same people who implement head the cartel here, they do the review for papers. The review for grants, it's even worse, because it is shameful. It is simply shameful for the United States of America. Let me give you one of thousands of examples. Professor Gregorio Tsagas, chairman, I repeat, chairman of the Department of Mathematics of Aristotle University in Thessaloniki, Greece, decide to apply, against my advice, decide to apply to the National Science Foundation on the Lee-Santilli ISO theory, which is a non-linear, non-local, and non-Hamiltonian generalization of Lie theory, so with enormous implications, in which there have been several books written by numerous independent scholars, about a dozen of just monographs alone, let alone hundreds of papers. To understand the gravity of the situation of the review process, of a review process of this beautiful grant application, you have to read the reviews, which are now in unfriendly hands in Europe. The vulgarity in which they attacked Professor Tsagas as being an ignorant and not understanding need. This he was applying with equations on a theory already established. Ladies and gentlemen, the vulgarity of the rejection, let alone the rejection. How can America survive if this is not stopped at its root? And then the founding agency, NSF and the DOE and the others. Ladies and gentlemen, I reached the top of academia in America. I was part of the election of the officers here. I can testify, many others can testify. Officers here are appointed by academia under no large number of conditions, that they have to obey orders by academia on the theory that they want. And it's told in their face very clearly, once you are in your position, if you do not obey our order, you will be terminated. This has happened in many cases. There is one case which is documented. David Peasley, officer of the High Energy Physics Division of the Department of Energy. He was terminated because he opposed the termination of research on the surpassing of Einstein doctrines. The moment he posed himself, I don't know if he's still alive, he's an Australian, but the moment he acted in the interest of the United States of America, he was terminated immediately. He was given a desk at University of Marion with no salary. The episodes are distressing, ladies and gentlemen. Then finally you go in other aspect. The Nobel Foundation is the very, very climax of this cartel. There are now unreassuring websites. I have read one that states, quote, that the Nobel Foundation is directly responsible, if I remember the words, for the biggest scientific obscurantism in the history of mankind, that dwarfs, by comparison, I think those are the words, the obscurantism implemented by the Vatican during Galileo's time, and then enters into all sorts of documentation of the statements. First of all, the dimension of the current obscurantism, we are talking about trillions of dollars, while in Galileo there were only religious beliefs. And but the Nobel Foundation is the ultimate, the very, very apex in which this entire cartel converges for the control of the prices. And there are a number of cases that have to be denounced. For instance, there was a period 2 decades ago in which there was serious doubts about the existence of neutrinos. Are there still now? This will be the topic of the next lecture. Well, immediately as those doubts started to gain ground, immediately a Nobel Prize was granted for the discovery of the neutrino. Neutrino cannot be detected by Enrico Fermi conception and admission. They're supposed to be, you cannot best detect particles that are predicted by the neutrino conjecture, but you cannot detect neutrino. So just the statement, the justification of the prize indicates you the politics at the Nobel Foundation. The same happens for quarks. Quarks are a conjecture as far when you assume as a physical particle. We will see this in the next lecture. So at the moment there was a period in which the quarks conjecture were subjected to at least the initiation of a scrutiny. Immediately there were Nobel Prize for the discovery of such quarks and such other quarks. When again the correct motivation for the prize should have been the discovery of particles predicted by the hypothesis of quarks. But you see, the hypothesis of quarks, that's what they don't want, the cartel on Einstein, because they need the hypothesis that quarks are physical particles, physical constituents of hadrons, is absolutely necessary for what? The main objective: maintain Einstein theory in the interior of hadrons. All theory of contemporary physics, with no exception known to me, are formulated for that specific purpose, namely to maintain the dominance of Einstein theory in all conditions existing in the universe. This includes dark matter, dark energy, quark conjecture, string theories. You just name it. You go at the origin. You will not see treated in the true objective. You will not see treated in the papers. But the ultimate implications are those. Maintain Einstein theory. The same goes for the control of all other prizes. That anytime I'm recommended for a prize, I have been reported by friends that there are dozens and dozens of letters from all over the world, unsolicited, trying to discredit me in any possible way, because an important prize to me will imply that indeed there exists life after Einstein sciences. Finally, it is my duty, until I accept the privilege of being a citizen of the United States of America, it is my duty, under the protection of the First Amendment of our beautiful Constitution, to denounce the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives as being the primary responsible not only of the decay of America at large, but also of this scientific decay and the collapse of scientific ethics in the United States of America, the suppression of scientific democracy and everything that has been denounced in this lecture. My opinion, shared by many Americans, that the Senate and the House of Representatives have, since the beginning of the past century, have exploited the American people for their personal interest. Most Americans do not know what everybody in the rest of the world knows. For instance, that the prohibition was not ordered by the government to prohibit a guy in the middle of the woods in Alabama to make his own booze. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is laughable. The real reason of the prohibition was to prohibit American people to make their own fuels, because the engines of that time could use any fuel, including alcohol. So the prohibition was made to suppress the fundamental right of America under the smoke screen of totally false presentation. And indeed, the prohibition was signaled the birth of enormous financial and political fortune. The Rockefeller financial fortune was burned because of the prohibition. People were forced to use petroleum. When finally petroleum was established everywhere, and then at that moment the prohibition was lifted. Now this thing has been continued ever since. Now the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives, they have this law of using food for fuel and imposing 10% of ethanol in our gasoline. First of all, most Americans do not know that this is only in America. In Europe, the use of food for fuel is prohibited by law, because the evident reason it will disrupt the price of causes incredible increases in the cost of in food for the ordinary people. In any case, ethanol is dramatically more expensive than gasoline, and we have many alternatives much better than ethanol, even technically more acceptable I own classic cars. I have an incredible problem in using gasoline with ethanol because it destroys the old carburetors. But the U.S. Senator and the House of Representatives could not care less. They only care about their interest. Because they care about what they call their own constituency. Now, so ladies and gentlemen, I have to sound the biggest alarm at the political level that is responsible for everything. Regarding science, also the moment is very serious. We are at the edge of a potential precipice. The down spiral of the country has been going now for too long to be ignored, and as stated before, it is accelerating. So, due to the gravity of the moment, it is necessary to identify the responsibility of the decay in science, which is an integral part of the decay, if not the primary decay, to identify in its reality, which is the ethnic reality. Ladies and gentlemen, the numerical majority of the scientists who are responsible, not all, but the numerical majority of the scientists who are responsible of this organized cartel on Einstein theory are Jewish. Steven Weinberg is Jewish. Glashow is Jewish. The late Coleman is Jewish. The late Hermann Feshbach is Jewish. The late Panofsky is Jewish. Lederman is Jewish, etc., etc., etc. Now, the issue is therefore the following. Why does people have acted with such impunity? Because the numerical majority of the senators is Jewish. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is no hope whatsoever that Jewish senators may bring under investigation Jewish Nobel Prizes in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody who dreams about that is outside reality. This will never happen. Because of obvious and very well known interdecay. However, in doing so, however, they are creating what is called what is now openly denounced also in a number of news media as well as in websites, including in Wikipedia. I've read recently accusation of famous Jewish scientists of being anti-Semitic. I repeat, accusation of famous Jewish scientists of being anti-Semitic because their action was considered by other Jews against the interest of the people. And so we have reached a point in which we are at the extreme. Very, what is at stake here is the risk, just the risk, that the Jewish physics community may cause a permanent damage to the rest of the Jewish population, which is made by magnificent people. All my medical doctors have been mostly Jews. My best dentists have been Jewish. My best attorneys have been Jewish. My technicians have been Jewish. They are magnificent people. We are talking about a minority. But their action is so grave that can damage also the rest of the Jewish population, which again I have to state is made by innocent, magnificent, law-abiding citizens. So it's up to us, the Gentile, to prevent that Jewish scientists cause such a harm to their own people, by keeping in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that the Gentile in Hebrew means barbers. Okay, this is the final conclusion. It is a moment in which the United States of America has to rise to the occasion. It is an historical possibility. It's only up to us. Again, let's review some of the majestic episodes in our history. And during World War II, the President Roosevelt ordered him, not the Senate, he ordered the setting up of the National Laboratory, and we know the outcome. Thanks to that determination, we indeed, America managed successfully to eliminate evil, Nazi evil from the world. And President Kennedy, in front of the superiority of Russia at that time with the Sputnik, ordered NASA to pass Russia in technological knowledge in space, not only for a question of prestige, but also for national security, and we reached the moon. Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing a similar situation. Again, I have no faith whatsoever on the US Senate and the House of Representatives. They will never, ever even, I pray to be wrong, but they will never, ever even investigate the originators of this decay of the prestige and science in America. In any case, after my publication of Il Grande Grido, a senator from California tried to organize a senatorial investigation of the act of scientific gangsterism, which I have denounced and reviewed even briefly here. But Jewish senator immediately floored the proposal because all the scientists on the investigation were Jewish. So the only chance for America is that there is a president that finally takes control of the situation and acts and impose a scientific renewal. The President of the United States has full power of doing it, as other presidents have shown to be done. President Obama had indeed the premises for this renewal. Indeed, during his campaign, he made a pledge of scientific democracy in the United States with a statement that was so beautiful that was put at the top of the Santilli the website of the Santilli Foundation. Unfortunately, after the election, President Obama elected as scientific advisor a member of Harvard University, and he elected as director of the DOE a Nobel Prize, Dr. Chu. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment the trustees saw those elections, immediately they removed that statement from the top of the main page of their website, because, ladies and gentlemen, those are representative of the very representative of the organized interest that they have suppressed for decades. Just being a Nobel laureate means that you have all sorts of commitment to follow, because to follow from the colleagues who have allowed you to receive the Nobel Prize. In any case, it should be known, I am the chief scientist of a public company in the United States, Magna Gas Corporation. We produce a fuel that cannot be denied, even by the most callous anti-American guy, cannot be denied that this fuel is first of all cleaner than burns in a way cleaner than gasoline. Second, is cheaper than gasoline, and third, it is an American fuel in the sense that it is produced from American feedstock, available everywhere, liquid waste, without any need of foreign petroleum. Numerous stockholders, in their own initiative, I'm talking about a dozen or so stockholders, immediately for the election of Dr. Chu, contacted Dr. Chu, petitioning at least some form of interest, at least indicate some form of interest on this American fuel, or at least provide indication of which type of program the Magna Gas Corporation, a public company, could apply. Incidentally, those stockholders did not know that the science underlying Magna Gas Corporation is dubbed by the cartel to be fringe. So there was no hope whatsoever, not even a remote hope that an American fuel could get funded by the Department of Energy today, ladies and gentlemen. Again, who suspects even minimally this possibility as being real, I think has to be needs some very serious reconsideration. In any case, Dr. Chu did not even have the courtesy of asking one of his secretary to drop just one word of acknowledgement to those various stockholders, those various American, I call them American with capital A, because they still dream that eventually America can have a rebirth, and the rebirth, a necessary rebirth, has to start, of course, from an American fuel, and as a necessary condition for any further advance. In closing, I would like to indicate that it is my opinion that President Obama elected the fellow from Harvard as scientific advisor and the Nobel laureate as director of the Department of Energy. This was done in full good faith from the part of President Obama. simply President Obama is not aware, is a politician who has not been exposed to this unfortunate decay of scientific ethics at the very, very foundation of our society. For this reason, I voted for President Obama, and I intend to vote for him again. I only pray that in the next term he elects everybody he wants, for scientific advisor and director of the DOE, anybody he wants, except representative of the very cartel that is controlling basic knowledge and such large funds. In closing, I have a personal comment. I was born under Nazi and Mussolini regime. I have seen as a little child, I have seen real war. I still have scars in my body of German shells. It is my conviction that democracies are very, very delicate object, and so is also for empire. I have to recall that the situation of the Roman Empire at the beginning of the 2nd century, which is claimed by many historians and many observers throughout various niches, that is very similar to the situation of America today. At the beginning of the 2nd century, Rome had the biggest empire in history, defined as known land. But the Romans did not understand that the empire was dying, and dying very rapidly because of the collapse of ethics. They had reached such power, such wealth, that they did not care anymore, and there was a collapse of ethics. The collapse of ethics was so fast, generation later, the Roman society was so collapsed that they were unable even to fix their own aqueducts. And that is the very reason why the Roman ruins are on the meters and meters of soil, the swamp soil. So I had to recall this history, and because there are all the ingredients in this moment of the United States of America that it could repeat for us with unthinkable upheaval of civil, financial, and military character. However, I want to close with a positive note. This is the United States of America. Despite all this organized cartel that I have denounced so graphically throughout this lecture, the United States of America have permitted my study, despite all this obstruction, and I have received support from corporate, from laboratories, and an endless number of individual and entity outside academia. This is a concrete illustration of the greatness of this country because of its diversity, and because of this diversity, I do indeed pray, and I believe that indeed if a president such as President Obama has indeed the will, the determination for a rebirth, the rebirth will indeed be implemented, and will be as big to be marked in history as one of the other actions by the preceding presidents such as Roosevelt and Kennedy. Thank you for your attention.